First year when I came in late 2015, one of the first things I did was immediately, as much as I could, I started setting up coffee with various leaders and ministries in the parish and their various parish council members. In the business world, we might call this a listening tour. And it also helped because house blessing season was about a month after that. One of the first people I got together with was our dear brother Fawaz. I miss him a lot. And our coffee and lunch and breakfast times together were so enjoyable. There was great conversation. And I learned a lot, not just about the parish, but I learned a lot about life from this man, as we all did, I'm sure.
Thank you.
And he had these, very interesting sayings, which he was very fond of. I don't know, it was kind of a combination of the Desert Fathers and Confucius when he would give you some advice about life. He would ask me things like, "Father, so what are you thinking about doing now that you're here?" And I would say, "Well, I'm not going to make any big changes for the first year." And he nodded because he was agreeing with me, but his way of affirming what I had said was simply offering the proverb, "Do not remove a fence until you know why it was put there." He had his way of saying these kinds of things, right? He would give me other lessons on life. He would give me other pieces of advice when it came to planning and the future of the church and so forth. He would say things like, "It is not the wind, but the set of sails that takes you where you want to go." And so on. You guys are in rapture. I thought that we'd be laughing. You guys are so mesmerized by these sayings. You're just like I was when I was hearing them. And perhaps my favorite one of all the wonderful little quotes that he had, he emailed me a list of about 100 or so that he just kept on his computer. But perhaps my favorite was, "Do not put a period where God has put a comma." Do not put a period where God has put a comma. In other words, we might encounter something in life that we feel is the end. That's it. I'm done, I guess. Well, nothing more I can do. Wait a second. God might say, "Don't put a period there because I have not put a period there. I don't think it's the end." Hence the word where God has put a comma. I quoted that in sermons in the past and at various other things, but it is worth repeating because today's gospel reading is also just such a story. It's about a group of people, perhaps even a whole village, who had put a period where God had put a comma. Fawaz knew what he was talking about. Very wisely. This is true in John's gospel today. What is the evangelist John, St. John the theologian, saying? If not, don't put a period where God has put a comma. We hear right before this story about how Jesus is in a village, right before he goes to see Lazarus, at least in the tomb. And even though the apostles are telling him we should go, he says, "No, we're going to stay a couple of days." And then after Lazarus dies, the apostles are like, "Lord, your friend has passed away." And Jesus says something so amazing that if he weren't God, it would sound horribly insensitive. "I'm glad he passed away so that you can see the glory of God." And so sure enough, he goes with the apostles, and over and over again, he hears Lazarus is dead. "Oh, if only you were here. You healed the blind man. Couldn't you have kept this man from dying? Couldn't you have healed him from his illness?" And so on and so on. How often in this very long pericope, do we hear that? This regret, this finality. It's also, by the way, why the fathers of the church put this feast day and this gospel reading right before Holy Week. Because it's a foreshadowing, just to say, hold on there, let's put the brakes on. Don't put a period where God has put a comma. Even so, in this same passage, we have the shortest verse of the entire Bible, Jesus wept. God still feels our pain even in the midst of his plan. But I digress. The ending of this story, of course, is a happy one. We hear that ultimately Jesus went to the tomb after Lazarus had been dead 4 days and raised him from the dead. Lazarus, come out. Lazare devron exo in Greek, in the New Testament Greek. Because I am declaring there's no period here. There's no end to the story here. This is not the end. I am God, and I say when it's the end. Death does not say when it is the end. God has put a comma where the rest of the people in that village, the rest of Lazarus' family, the rest of the Lord's apostles, all had put a period. God said, not so fast. I say when it's done. If that might sound arrogant, well, perhaps to human standards it does. It is a reminder that God is sovereign. He is the God of the living and over the dead. And He has sovereignty over all of those things. Now, today's feast is a celebration. We say on a Saturday, may He who rose from the dead today. And it has the character of the resurrection. Because we celebrate today the defeat of death. The foreshadowing, shall we say, actually, of the defeat of death. We celebrate that no period in the human language can ever tell God when it is the end. No story that we think might be the end in our life ever informs what God thinks is the end in our life, or anything else for that matter. So it's a reminder today, my brothers and sisters, that whatever might be going on in our life, even death of a family member or whatever it might be, well, I guess that's it. I guess it's the end. Do you often hear of stories of friends or relatives or loved ones, or even we ourselves, throwing up our hands and saying, well, that's it, it's over? Hopelessness, despair, perhaps depression if taken to the extreme. Do we ever find ourselves putting a period in a story, perhaps arbitrarily? And do we in those moments remember it is God who decides when the finality is there, not before and not anyone else? With this in mind, let us celebrate the love that the Lord had for Lazarus and that He has for each one of us, His children. And no matter what's going on in our life, no matter what challenges we might be facing, no matter what difficulties might cross our path, truly let us remember, it's not up to us. It's not up to the world around us. It's not up to anyone else other than God to say when the end of the story is. So truly, let us remember not to put a period where God has put a comma. God bless you. Kali Anastasi. Please rise.